I think the actual headline here was that woman 63 becomes pregnant in the mouth with baby squid after eating calamari. Oh, okay, that one is strange. So today, I'm reacting to 7 of the strangest things found inside the human body. I challenged my team to scour the internet and compile the list for today's lesson with one goal: to take me by surprise. I haven't seen any of these examples yet, but with over 20 years in the medical profession, I've heard many bizarre stories. So let's react together in real time and, as always, attempt to deepen our understanding of human anatomy. I know I can count on 2 things. We'll have plenty of evidence of just how resilient our anatomy truly is, and there may be some urban myths that push the facts a little too far. But hey, strange things do happen. Even when a foreign object enters the body, we can adapt and continue to function. This X-ray shows a bullet in the brain of a young boy who, according to reports, had a tiny wound in his head and a little bit of blood in his hair, and was conscious but sleepy. The attending neurosurgeon, Guy Elor, told the Times of Israel he was amazed that even though the bullet went through very important brain structures, the boy was chatting and recovering and was expected to have only minimal brain damage or perhaps none at all. Pretty incredible, huh? So let's see if my team can top that. French doctors were taken aback when they discovered the reason for a patient's sore, swollen belly. He had swallowed around 350 coins, approximately $650 worth, along with assorted necklaces and needles. Jesus Murphy, man. What the hell? This guy was apparently about 62 years old, and he had a history of major psychiatric illness, and he came in suffering of stomach pain. He was unable to eat or move his bowels. When they looked on X-ray, there was an opaque mass, so the X-ray couldn't see through this structure, and it turned out to weigh approximately 12 pounds. That's as much as a damn bowling ball. And for those of you who haven't seen my last video on bowling ball versus human torso, you should go cue that up now to watch later. That's a lot of stuff to have in your belly. And apparently this was so heavy that his stomach basically stretched down from its natural location, which is kind of tucked over to the left-hand side of your abdomen, down into his pelvis. So that's a distance of between 8 to 12 inches, and that's really freaking far, which speaks to how much weight of the coins that he had eaten. I'm amazed that he didn't choke on any of these coins as he was swallowing them. And this is a disorder that we sometimes see in young children, and this disorder is called the pica disorder. This is described as an eating disorder that is non-nutritive, so you're not doing it for the purpose of gaining nutrients, and you're eating non-food substances. So in order to have the official diagnosis of pica, you have to be doing this for over a 1-month period of time. All right, let's move on to number 2. An 8-year-old Indiana girl swallowed 30 magnets and steel balls from a toy last month, and her father says needed emergency surgery to save her from what doctors told him were 8 gunshot or stab-like holes in her intestines. So like the first disorder, this is again, somebody has eaten a bunch of things that hold no nutritional value. In this case, it doesn't appear that this is something that she habitually did. I think this is more just kind of a one-off. You know, they were a small size. She may have thought that they looked like candy. Maybe she just did it out of curiosity. The wounds that she suffered were like she had been shot or that she had been stabbed, meaning that there were puncture wounds all throughout her intestines. And the reason I think this is interesting because the magnets, obviously, if they're strong enough, they're not all gonna move through the digestive tract at the same time. Food or food products or things that you swallow are pushed through the intestines using a process that is called peristalsis, where different segments of the intestines contract at different times to push things along. Because the intestine is so long, in order for it all to fit in the abdomen, it has to be folded and coiled on itself. It's quite possible that you may have two magnets that are in different segments of the bowel, but yet laying adjacent to one another with some bowel tissue interposed. So if you have, say, an S curve, you could have one magnet in the top segment of bowel, another in the bottom segment of bowel, and even though the actual path of the bowel is like this, those two magnets attract one another, and so you can have these wounds that are like gunshot wounds or are like stab wounds that we would generally associate with penetrating trauma being caused by these magnets, even though there is no sharp object or no penetrating object that has gone into the abdomen itself. It's pretty cool from a science and medical perspective, although it's gross from the child's perspective. I'm hoping that this, the child actually did okay, and I'm assuming that she did. She may have had multiple of these penetrating type of injuries. If they were very severe, might have required a bowel resection where they just cut out a segment of damaged bowel. All right, not bad so far. Let's move on to number 3. What is with people swallowing stuff? Like, really? Come on, man. Razor blades in appendix. A 25-year-old male prisoner presented to our hospital with persistent right iliac fossa pain after razor blade ingestion. Laparoscopy with intraoperative image intensification confirmed the presence of the razor blades in the appendix, and appendectomy was subsequently performed without complications. Another one with people swallowing stuff. Oh my gosh, man. Just because you have a mouth doesn't mean that you need to put everything in it. Now, I got to give this guy the benefit of the doubt because he was a prisoner. So I'm assuming that either he had the razor blade for self-defense and he inadvertently swallowed it, or he had, used it against somebody and then perhaps swallowed it so that he could get rid of the evidence. I don't know what this dude was thinking. Interesting thing here to note is that the digestive acids within the stomach are extremely powerful. So the hydrochloric acid that is present there is an acid that is strong enough to dissolve a number of things, including, of all things, metal. There's actually an article that shows that double-edged blades will become fragile and can be broken quite easily after only 24 hours being bathed or submerged in hydrochloric acid. Our stomach has a special lining that secretes a chemical which protects us from the strength of this acid. That means that it passed all of the way through the stomach, through the sphincter above and below the stomach, all of the way through the small intestine until the appendix. And there's a bit of a right angle there. This is the location at which it got stuck. So the blade made it almost, I would say, at least half of the way through the digestive tract without causing any problems, and then only got stuck because of this right angle. All right, so far we have 3 things, or 3 cases where people have eaten things. Hopefully they have picked something now where we're gonna move on to something other than stuff going in through the mouth. All right, number 4. Ron Svendin, a retired teacher from Brewster, Massachusetts in the US, was astonished to discover what he thought was a tumor growing in his lung was actually a plant that had sprouted from an inhaled pea. Holy crap. This is, again, coming in through the top end. This sprout or the plant was about half an inch long, and apparently this guy had been short of breath for several months with emphysema. I think this is interesting because, number 1, this pea actually had to get caught somewhere. So if you look at the respiratory tree, you have the trachea, which is like the trunk of a tree. And then as you go down, the airways tend to branch off like branches in a tree, and they become smaller and smaller over time. Because they get smaller and smaller the further and further you go down, eventually that pea could get trapped in one of the bronchioles. Normally, your body would recognize that as a foreign body and you would have some kind of immunologic reaction there. I'm not sure that the environment here is actually right for the germination of a pea seed. There is moisture there, which is what the pea seed needs, but it's not like it's soil and you have all of the other nutrients that a seed would use to germinate. And I think eventually the body would have rejected this because there is no sunlight down there. So we're not going to have photosynthesis occurring. It's a pretty cool story, but I'm not sure how likely that would be to progress any further. Number 5, moving on. Russian surgeons have claimed to have found a 2-inch fir tree growing inside a man's lung. The amazing discovery was apparently made when they opened Artyom Sidorkin, 28, to remove what they thought was a serious tumor. Okay. Similar to the last story, apparently Mr. Sidorkin had complained of extreme pain in his chest and he began to cough up some blood. So his doctors, that like anytime you're coughing up blood, that's not a good thing. And doctors were convinced that this guy had cancer. When they did some x-rays, they found what looked exactly like a tumor. You go, well, how does a 2-inch fir tree look exactly like a tumor? I have not really seen that many fir trees inside of a person, but I'm going to assume that it's radio opaque, meaning that the x-rays will not go through the tree. So you're gonna see this mass, which is going to be oddly shaped. We don't normally see fir trees inside of people. So this is why we think tumor. So they did a partial pneumonectomy, which means that they make an incision, open the chest, and remove a portion of the lung. The surgeon says that he thought he was hallucinating. He showed it to the assistant. The assistant agreed that that's what it was, and that's what they took out. Their belief is that Mr. Sidorkin must have inhaled a seed, which later got stuck in one of the smaller bronchioles of the airway, and then that came and became a fir tree. I'm a little bit skeptical about this story. Not that I don't think that the actual a seed being caught in the bronchiole couldn't happen. I think that could happen. Once the seed has germinated, I think that's all you're gonna get. After that, the body is going to recognize that this is something that doesn't belong there, and so you're going to get a massive immune response, and you're either going to get a chemical pneumonitis, as I talked about, or pneumonia, or something. All right, number 6. A 63-year-old Korean woman experienced severe pain in her oral cavity immediately after eating a portion of parboiled or partially boiled squid. She did not swallow the portion, but spat it out immediately. 12 small white spindle-shaped bug-like organisms stuck in the mucosa membrane of the tongue, cheek, and gingiva were completely removed. The foreign bodies were identified as squid spermatophores. Ugh. Okay, yeah, so I think the actual headline here was that woman 63 becomes pregnant in the mouth with baby squid after eating calamari. Oh, okay. That one is strange. I'm not really sure about the mechanism by which squid become impregnated. I guess we had a squid here that was not quite dead yet, either as a response to the pain or perhaps as a drive for it to pass along its progeny before it died. Through whatever mechanism, it tried to put its spermatozoa or its seeds in whatever tissue where it was. Perhaps the squid itself was dead, but the temperature at which it had been cooked was not enough to also kill the spermatozoa. These obviously viable spermatophores basically tried to put themselves into the tissue in which they found themselves. So they may have thought that that was the mouth was actually a mother squid. I'm not sure. Of all of the stories I've heard so far, this one seems to be the most implausible, but hey, weird things happen. And I'll really have to look into this a little more closely to see how it is that squids actually are impregnated. So far, this is the winner. And finally, for our last one, fetus in fetu. Sanju Bhagat's stomach was once so swollen he looked 9 months pregnant and could barely breathe. Doctors thought he might have a giant tumor, so they decided to operate and remove the source of the bulge in his belly. Inside Bhagat's stomach was a strange, half-formed creature that had feet and hands that were very developed. Yeah, at first glance it looks here as if the Bagat had given birth, but actually what happened is that the surgeon removed the mutated body of his twin brother from his stomach. This is something that wouldn't have been discovered had he not had difficulty breathing. Sometimes a tumor, depending on its location, can be so large that it presses on the diaphragm, then makes it difficult for the diaphragm to move, which then makes it difficult to pass oxygen or to pass air, and people become easily breathless. As soon as they started to operate on Bagat, the surgeon, Dr. Mehta, said that he saw something that he had never encountered before and he wasn't expecting. As he cut deeper into the stomach, there was a large amount of fluid that spilled out, and then something extraordinary happened. To their surprise and also horror, there was a body that was inside, something that they could almost actually shake hands with. It was so developed. Normally, twins will occur from a single embryo that has subsequently divided, and then each of those cells goes on to create an entire human being. Normally, each of those embryos is going to develop in a separate location within the uterus. But sometimes, if that division process does not occur fully, you might actually have one embryo that is developing inside of the other one. You wouldn't expect the embryo that was inside of the other one to grow at the same rate or to the same extent, because the uterine wall provides a lot of nutrients and provides access to good blood supply. It's the one that's going to show the most growth. The other one being inside of that, it's not in an environment that is conducive to it receiving all of the nutrients directly from the wall of the uterus. So it's not only will it grow slower, it's much likely to be smaller. So I think that this is also quite fascinating, because obviously there had to be some kind of capsule around this fetus in order to keep it protected from the contents of the digestive tract. I talked about in one of the earlier cases with the razor blade just how strong the hydrochloric acid in the stomach is, and so it could easily dissolve biologic tissue. You know, I thought that the other one was kind of creepy, but this is very interesting, but also very creepy. It's unfortunate, you know, because obviously the other twin was non-viable. Fortunately, they were able to get it out, and I'm assuming that Bagat did well after surgery. On that note, I think we'll end it right there, because that one definitely takes the cake. So believe it or not, my team had many more interesting cases than what we just presented here. So if you're interested in another video like this, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't, be sure to let me know why in the comment section. Otherwise, as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho, where we see one, do one, teach one.